How's it going, Giants fans? My name is Alex with my co-host here, Anthony Rivardo. And today's topic, we're discussing one underrated and one overrated player on this New York Giants roster. There's a couple guys. Actually, it was pretty difficult to choose because so many of them have been injured, and I feel kind of bad putting guys in the overrated category that have been injured. And, you could throw Saquon and you could throw Sterling Shepard. You could throw Blake March. There's so many guys who might be considered overrated or may not be. But the injuries kind of throw a wrench into it. So we're going to try and avoid the injuries and pick guys that have just been more reliable and just kind of seen their play degrade based on a sample size and not them getting hurt. So before we jump into the first underrated player, we have one underrated player and we have a 1A and a 1B as overrated. Anthony, how are you doing today, my friend?
Doing great, fighting through my COVID, but taking a look at the Giants roster, when you're picking someone overrated, picking someone underrated, it's so subject to opinion, and there's so many confounding variables. And, taking a look at the Giants over the last couple of years, so many injuries, bad coaching. There's players that you could maybe argue. I could see a Giants fan saying, like, Kenny Galladay, so overrated, but how do you really rate a guy like that who's been with the team for 1 year, was injured for half of the year or playing through an injury for half of the year, and was playing in one of the worst offensive schemes that just did nothing to maximize his value and his skill set? It's really tough to evaluate a lot of the players on the Giants roster, but there are a few of them that you take a look at. I see some Giants fans say these players could be like all pro potential, Pro Bowl potential, and sometimes I just don't see it. There's even players that, Alex and I were just discussing beforehand, like Ellerson Smith. People think he could be a serviceable rotational guy on third downs. That's what Alex was saying.
Subtweet.
I don't even think he's going to make the team this summer. I think he's going to get cut. So it's very subject to opinion. It's always going to be really interesting to debate. And I'm kind of excited just to take a look at a couple of these guys and say, maybe temper your expectations or start heating them up for a couple of these players.
Yeah, I understand that. I still think Ellerson Smith, is going to be at least a contributor in some way. I think he's going to be better than O'Shane Eximon is. That doesn't mean much, but at least maybe he'll be able to help Kayvon Thibodeau mitigate some fatigue. I mean, if that's all he does, that's good enough for me because helping Kayvon Thibodeau stay healthy is what should be Ellerson Smith's biggest role on this team. Whether that means, carrying him some water or something, I don't know. But the most underrated player, in my opinion, right now is Azeez Ojulari. I think Azeez Ojulari, like Kayvon Thibodeau has been getting a lot of the hype. Like we really like Azeez Ojulari. People speak highly of Azeez, but with Kayvon Thibodeau coming to the Giants, being drafted, I kind of feel like Azeez has been put on the back burner a little bit, and he deserves our respect, right? As a rookie last year, dropped to the 50th overall pick after the knee issue kind of came out of nowhere. But he put on 10 pounds of muscle mass this past offseason, so he's like 260 pounds, 6'2". He's got some really good size to him. Had 49 combined tackles last year, 8 tackles for a loss and 13 QB hits, and 8 sacks and a forced fumble. So his stats are pretty solid for a rookie. He kind of stood out on the Giants defense, and he was really their primary pass rusher for the majority of the 2021 year. But I'll tell you what, I think he's going to take a step forward, and the reason for that is because that extra added mass is going to add 2 elements to his game, right? So prior to this, he really relied on that chop move to really curate separation between his assignment, whether that be an offensive tackle or a tight end, whatever it might be. He loved to use that chop move. It was his best move at Georgia, and he really relied on that. And now adding 10 pounds of muscle mass, he has 2 different elements he can add to his game. And the first one is a bull rush, right? That extra size and mass with speed. We showed him casually kind of like just benching 120 pound dumbbells. Pretty impressive. It seemed like it was like toward the end of his workout too. So he's definitely got some strength. There's no doubt about it. But that bull rush, I think, is going to be a little bit more prominent in his game this year, which I think is going to be a big factor in diversifying his pass rush sequence. And the other variable, in my opinion, is going to be run stopping, right? Last year, his ability to set the edge was a little bit flawed at times. He didn't have the size. He got pushed around a little bit, got lost in transition. But I think with the extra mass and the added kind of experience now, he's going to be a pretty solid edge setter, right? Like teams are not going to have such easy success against him as they did last year at some points. He wasn't bad by any means, but he did have some games where he kind of disappeared or didn't do necessarily great. Pretty solid tackler nonetheless, but I think if he puts that pass rush together with run defense and they just kind of couple and marry at just an above average level, you're going to see a really good player this upcoming year. And then alongside Kayvon Thibodeau, this pass rush could have some really underrated production coming out of it. And I'm excited to see what they can do in 2022. But, what is your opinion on Azeez Ojulari and like the season he could have in 2022?
Yeah, I love Azeez Ojulari. I always did. I thought, last year when the Giants held the 11th overall pick in the first round, there were experts and analysts that were mock drafting him to the Giants at 11. And a lot of fans were like, oh, I think that's too early. That might be a reach. But I had him as like a top 20 overall player in the draft. So I was like, if this player is worth the 20th overall pick, it's not that much of a stretch to take him at 11. I would have been okay with that. I thought he was that good. But then, of course, I also didn't know about the knee thing. Nobody knew about the knee thing until the draft happened. And he was drafted by the Giants at the 50th overall pick. Everyone was like, well, how the hell did he fall so far? Apparently, there was some sort of question mark about a knee injury, but that didn't really come up at all in his rookie season. Instead, he looked like a player that should have been drafted in the top 20 picks. He looked like exactly who he was at Georgia. Really good, talented, young, and speedy outside linebacker with great pass rushing capabilities and a lot of potential. That's exactly what Azeez Ojulari is. The Giants were really lucky to secure him with the 50th overall pick. And I think what could happen now is a lot of Giants fans get really excited, hop on the Kayvon Thibodeau hype train. Go ahead. Absolutely, you should. Alex is wearing a Kayvon Thibodeau jersey right now. I'm getting mine in the mail soon enough. I can't wait to see KT play in a big blue uniform. But don't let that distract you from the fact that Azeez Ojulari is entering year 2. Now, if it wasn't for Kayvon Thibodeau being drafted with the 5th overall pick, let's say it shaped up a different way. The Giants took an offensive tackle at 5, and maybe at 7 they took a corner, right? So let's say they took a cornerback at 7. Well, Giants fans would still be excited for an edge rusher on the Giants. You would hear a lot of chatter and a lot of buzz about Azeez Ojulari entering his second season. You're expecting him to take a step forward. He put down a really solid foundation as a rookie. Looked like a very good pass rusher. In some games, he looked like he could be an elite player in the NFL. That Panthers game, that was killer. He's a very good player. And you just think ahead, like what he could become now that he's playing alongside another really good pass rusher. Well, instead of all those double team blocks going ahead and taking out Azeez Ojulari on a play, those double team blocks are going to go to Kayvon Thibodeau. And Kayvon Thibodeau is just so talented, he'll be able to get past a lot of those double teams. But it just opens up more one-on-one opportunities for Azeez Ojulari. And Azeez Ojulari, who already had a really good cross-chop move that Alex was mentioning, but who's also adding pass rush moves to his arsenal, adding 10 pounds of weight, getting faster, stronger, more experienced, and he's only having less double team blocking situations, more one-on-one opportunities. So you could actually be talking about a potential breakout season for Azeez Ojulari. Now that some of the attention is off of him, there's not so much spotlight on him, right? Opposing offenses might not be game planning to try and take Azeez Ojulari out of a game. They're going to be game planning to take Kayvon Thibodeau out of a game. And that's going to open up a massive opportunity for Azeez Ojulari to just have a breakout season. And I can't wait for it. Don't sleep on him. I think he's an underrated player because people are going to sleep on him. I just think there's going to be a giant shadow cast by the superstar that we just drafted in Kayvon Thibodeau, and some people are going to forget what a talented player the Giants drafted with the 50th overall pick last year. Azeez Ojulari, we always thought that he had the potential to be a premier number 1 edge rusher in the NFL. That potential is still there. You're just adding it alongside the great potential that you have in Kayvon Thibodeau. So those two combined together, the Giants long-term, they could have a serious pass rushing duo with Kayvon Thibodeau and Azeez Ojulari.
Yeah, I mean, if there's anyone I hope that forgets about Azeez Ojulari's quality, it's opposing offensive coordinators. Because if they're too caught up trying to figure out what Kayvon Thibodeau's doing, they can't forget about Ojulari, who's got some serious moves and he's doing a good job. He's working hard, man. I respect him. You see the clips and stuff, but like you can't even imagine how much work this guy's doing off the camera and adding the power, strength necessary to become a really good player. It's fun to see. And he's working out with Andrew Thomas in Atlanta, I think. So that's a pretty good thing for them. And let's head over to the overrated guys. So there's 2 that we have in mind. And I'm sure people will disagree, and that's okay. We want to hear why you guys disagree. Like, it's okay to disagree because, ultimately we all have our different opinions. But the first one is Dexter Lawrence, a guy who's kind of been a little overrated because his statistics haven't necessarily matched up with the hype and the expectations that we've had for him. I think as a rookie, he looks really solid, had a really good run defense grades. His pass rush was decent enough. He's had 3 sacks as rookie year, 4 sacks in 2020, and then 3 sacks last season. I think that Wink Martindale is going to ask him to obviously maintain that run defense, but he's going to let him be a little bit more creative with his pass rush. And I think that's going to be a really good thing for him because the guy is massive, right? Like, you're talking about a 6'4", 342-pound human being that can move like he can. Like, that's a very unique type of player. And he came into the offseason. I saw a picture of him a couple of weeks ago, and he was massive. Like, he looked like he put on some pounds. So I'm sure he's got to shed a little bit of weight. But I'll tell you what, I think that at the end of the day, there's going to be like a moment for him where, they picked up his option. Did they pick up his option? Yeah, they did, right? For 10 million. So his option is picked up for next year. So they got him for 2 more seasons. I think that's a pretty solid thing. And I think he can be a very good player. I think the coaching, maybe the way they were using him just wasn't that great, but I think he's been a little overrated the last 2 seasons after his rookie campaign. We got a sample size of reps. But I do think there's a lot left to untap for him. I do think he could be a very good player. It's just a matter of like putting it all together and showcasing a little bit more in the pass rush department from that like kind of defensive tackle standpoint. I still think he can be tremendous against guards. Like I want to see him do what every defensive tackle did to Will Hernandez last year and Matt Skura. Like that's what I want to see him do. So that's the first one. And Anthony, I'll give you a chance to kind of hit on Dexter Lawrence before we head over to the 1B option of this grouping.
Yeah, I really do like Dexter Lawrence. Really like him as a player, and I really like him as a person off the field. I think he's got great energy, and any interview you watch with him, he's just super fun to listen to, and he's like just a happy-go-lucky guy. Really like Dexter Lawrence. But in terms of his rating as a player, was he really, has he really lived up to the hype of being the 17th overall pick in the 2019 draft? You can definitely debate that. I don't know if he's really lived up to that hype. And I think the reason why I'd argue he is a bit overrated is because in his rookie season, we were kind of talking about him and saying, this is a guy who's more than just a 2-down run stuffing defensive lineman. He's got some pass rushing capabilities. He could be a very good pass rusher on the interior. So he had 2.5 sacks as a rookie, bumps up to 4 sacks in his sophomore season. Then it's back down to 2.5 in 2021. And I think that's where you kind of lose me a little bit with Dexter Lawrence. When we drafted him in the first round, we were hoping that we were getting a 3-down defensive lineman, somebody on the interior who doesn't just stuff the run, but also gets after the quarterback. And I feel like in 2021, I barely really saw him getting into the backfield. I felt like it was just his pass rushing productivity took a little bit of a nosedive, and it just got worse and worse. Like it just wasn't as productive as I had hoped. But I think there's still a lot of Giants fans out there that think he's going to turn the corner and become a very good pass rusher. But at this stage, entering his 4th season, I think realistically, Dexter Lawrence is just settling into a 2-down run stuffing role with a little bit of pass rushing prowess. I don't think he's going to really turn into that great pass rusher, unfortunately. But I hope I'm wrong about that. I hope I'm totally sleeping on Dexter Lawrence. He turns it around and does turn out maybe 6-7 sacks a season. That would be phenomenal. And again, we were just talking about Kayvon Thibodeau receiving a lot of attention. Maybe that draws some attention away from Dexter Lawrence and he gets a few cleanup sacks or starts getting more productive as a pass rusher. Maybe he does buff his stat line. But right now, I just think he's kind of stagnated over the past 2 years. From 2020 to 2021 has looked like the same player. I haven't seen the progression that I was hoping for. So hopefully he can take that step forward in 2022.
I hope he can as well. But the last guy, bit of polarizing one for fans. I think some people in the comments have definitely advocated on behalf of this player, and it's Shane Lemieux. Shane Lemieux was awful in his rookie season. There have been people that I've seen that have said that he looked good last year, and I'm like, when? He played 17 snaps, 17 full snaps. Okay, if I took 17 shots of a basketball, would you say that I was good because I made 10 of them? I'd be like, yo, you took 17 shots. Like, you probably got lucky, right? Like, I need to see more from Shane Lemieux. In no way or form am I committed to Shane Lemieux being a starter right now. Do I want him to pan out and be a good player? Absolutely. I want every single Giants player to be phenomenal. But if you're willing to tell me right now that Shane Lemieux is going to be a good starter on this team because you saw 17 reps, 17 full reps from last year against Denver when he had a partially torn patellar tendon, coming off one of the worst rookie seasons of an offensive guard in 2020, where he, let's see here, let's look at his stats. He gave up 5 sacks and 25 pressures in 500 snaps, and he had 3 penalties to go with it. So, this is a guy that has a lot to prove, and he has a good opportunity to win this job. I think that he's extremely overrated by some people. Some people will agree that he is not a good player, and you don't understand why. But like, that doesn't mean I don't want him to succeed. I do want him to succeed because he is a member of this team, and I think that Josh Azudu and Max Garcia will push him to be better. And coming off the knee injury, hopefully he can get better. But we need to see consistent play from Shane Lemieux. There are plays where he gets absolutely crushed, right? Like, he gets tossed aside. We need to see him not get tossed aside. Like, on every drive, there's one of those plays where he just gets destroyed. Like, that just can't happen if you're going to be a starting level offensive lineman. We've seen too many bad players at left guard for me to sit here and tell you that like I'm willing to like commit to Shane Lemieux right now. Let the position battle unfold. People are like, he's already penciled in as a starter. Why? Why are we so willing to just hand out starting jobs still? We've been doing this for like 5 years, right? We've been giving out starting jobs to guys who are not good. Let's look at Evan Ingram. Let's look at even Darius Slayton with his drops. Let's look at Matt Skura, Ben Bredesen. Like, these guys are just put Billy Price, like just handing out starting jobs to guys without any competition. And that's a Dave Gettleman thing, by the way. Like, he just, like, when we all were telling him, you've got to invest more in the offensive line. This unit is going to suck. He said the media has no idea what they're talking about, and they were confident in the offensive line. And look who was right. All of us, right? Shane Lemieux was a Dave Gettleman draft pick. Let's take a beat here and maybe just give this position battle a little bit more time to unfold and see what happens. Again, if Shane Lemieux wins fair and square, I will support the hell out of him because he's a Giants player. But right now, I think there's some people that think he's a very good player when I don't know where you've seen this, right? He didn't play last year. He played 17 snaps. And during his rookie season, he was one of the worst guards in football. Like, what are you looking at that I'm missing? So that is my opinion. And it's okay to disagree with me, by the way. Like, I'm totally respect your opinions. This is just how I feel. Like, I feel like he's a little overrated. But Anthony, like, what is your perspective of Shane Lemieux? And what he did, I guess, over 17 reps in 2021.
Listen, I'm not really going to put too much stock into 17 snaps. I agree with you. I think that's a little bit silly. A lot of players can go out there, have a good stretch of 20 snaps. That's half of a game. Second 20 snaps could be really, really bad. You never know. It maybe if he played the whole game, he would have ended up
wasn't
giving
even
up
that
3
good.
sacks.
He wasn't even good in the 17 snaps.
Listen,
he was like,
17
okay.
snaps is 17 snaps. You play okay on 17 snaps, all right, but do it across a full game. Do it across a full season. We haven't seen it from Shane Lemieux, And there are Giants players who saw his highlights at Oregon. He was a 5th-round draft pick out of Oregon. He was a guard who had a real mean streak. He was a mauler. He liked to get physical in the running game. Of course, all of these old boomer Giants fans love that crap. They love seeing those beastly mauling type run blocking guards, that reminds them of old school Giants football. And Shane Lemieux definitely has that in him. He has that mentality of being that old school mauler type. And I can appreciate that for sure. But he was a project. He was a 5th-round pick. He should have never been starting or playing as many games as he was as a rookie. He just was not ready. I said that from the get-go. I said, this is a player. I like what he brings to the table, but he needs some time to develop. They cannot rush him into the starting lineup. He got rushed in. Wasn't necessarily his fault. Giants offensive line was just bad, missing a lot of depth pieces. So Shane Lemieux goes out on the field, and he stunk as a rookie. He was very bad in pass protection. And when reporters ask him about it, he says, you know what? I wasn't that good. I got to improve. I've done a lot of work. I've watched a lot of film, and it was also a much different offense that I was playing in that taught you to do very different things in pass protection than this offense does. So that's also a key thing to consider with Shane Lemieux. Why, yes, I do think he's overrated, but there is a chance that he turns things around and turns into a good player. And I really hope so. Same thing as Alex. Any Giants player, I want to be the greatest player of all time just because they're wearing big blue. If you're wearing a Giants helmet, I want you to be the greatest player ever. So same goes for Shane Lemieux. And Shane Lemieux, I think, does have things that are good. He has things that are good in his game. There are things to like with Shane Lemieux, and he does need to improve. And like I said, this offensive scheme is much different in terms of what they do in pass protection versus that 2004 throwback Norv Turner style offense that Jason Garrett was running. It's going to look different, and players are going to play better, in my opinion, in this new offensive scheme. And Shane Lemieux, no exception to that rule. I think he will have a better season this year. I think he can have a bounce back. But am I going to go ahead and say that he should be the starter, that he is a starting caliber player? No, I'm not going to say that because all I saw was a very poor and inconsistent rookie season and 17 snaps last season. So no, I'm not going to call him a starting caliber player because he's never played at a starting caliber level. So hoping that he does this year, absolutely. I hope he turns into a quality starter on the Giants offensive line. But there is competition, and I do have more interest in a guy like Joshua Azeez. I think Joshua Azeez just brings a lot to the table. He's a little bit younger. He doesn't have the injury history, and he kind of does some similar things in the running game, and he might just be a better scheme fit. So I think it's going to be a really interesting competition, but I think there's a lot of Giants fans right now that are penning down Shane Lemieux as the starting left guard come September. hold your horses. All right, let's see what goes down in July, because I think there is some competition on this roster. I think training camp is going to be really interesting at that left guard spot. I'm really excited to cover the left guard training camp position battle on this channel, and I can't wait to see who wins that job in September. But I'm not ready to write anyone's name down just yet. All the way in July, early July, I'm not ready to say this is going to be the starter in September, because I think there's just a lot of long road to go to determine who the starting left guard is going to be.
Yeah, I think that's very well said. Very well said. I think like people that are like, it's his job to lose. I'm like, why? You know what I mean? Like, let's give Azeez a chance. Let's give Max Garcia a chance. Max Garcia was a Pro Bowl alternate last year, right? Like, can Shane Lemieux say that? Probably not. Azeez has experience playing left tackle. He's really quick feet. He is a solid prospect that could end up becoming something. And he's also a Joe Shane draft pick. So I'll throw it out there. Why don't, in a rebuild year, in a rebuild season, why not give your draft pick more reps? And he's on a rookie contract, right? Shane Lemieux has 2 years left on his rookie contract. Azeez has 4. Let's look at the long-term perspective of this team as well. If they're both like, if we were going to start, if we had no choice but to start someone right now, I'm starting Azeez over Shane Lemieux, simply because he's the draft pick from Joe Shane. He has a longer-term future on this team. And how much better is Shane Lemieux right now than Azeez? I can't even sit here and tell you that he is better, right? Like, why are we penciling him as a starter? So, in my opinion, like Anthony said, let's let this thing roll out naturally. We'll be covering it. We'll make sure you guys have all the updates. And if Shane Lemieux wins that starting job, I will be right behind him saying, you know what? If you win that starting job fair and square, go kick some ass and let's see what you got. Because I am 100% for a Giants player kicking some serious ass and having a great season and coming back from injury and proving us all wrong, or proving you guys that think he's going to be great, proving you guys right. Look, my favorite thing is to be wrong about Giants players, because that means the team is playing well. And that's something that we haven't been able to say lately. But my only point is, like, I think that we should let the starting jobs be filtered out based on position battles and people that earn them, instead of just handing them out like it's Halloween and we're giving out candy. You know what I mean? It's like that. That's what we've been doing the last couple of years, and I'm freaking done. I'm done with it, dude. Like, I'm so tired of these guys that don't deserve to be playing, don't deserve to have playing time, getting starting snaps. Look, I like Tay Crowder, and I think that he's a good player, but the fact that he was our Mike linebacker last year after Blake Martinez down was a huge indication that we had no linebacker depth. We were signing Jalen Smith off the freaking street. You know what I mean? We were signing guys off the Reggie Ragland. Like, are you serious right now, bro? Like, I just can't sometimes with this team. They right tackle. I mean, the fact that we stuck with Nate Solder for so long is just, it hurts my heart, man. Billy Price, it sucks sometimes. Like, this team has really disappointed us. And I just want competition. I want guys to win the battles because they performed well, and not because we didn't have enough talent to actually put together a decent position battle in the first place. So that's my perspective, guys. And I think Anthony put it together really nicely during his opportunity to give his perspective. So, guys, love to hear your thoughts below. Let us know your underrated player and your overrated players, if you agree with us or not. Always love to hear your opinions. Make sure to like and subscribe as always, and we'll catch you guys on the next Fireside Giants episode.